Hello guys, I still decided to record a video even in the conditions in which I am and my whole country is. Who don't know me, I'm from Ukraine. Why and how I managed to make the video, please read down below in the description, as it is a quite separate topic. In this video I will tell you 6 the most interesting and important facts you need to know if you decided to play Baldurs Gate 3. So, let's get started. The fact first. Before you start your own adventure, I think you at least will be interested to know that all the actions take place in Forgotten Realms universe. This is one of the most popular universes for Dungeons & Dragons board game. It is also in this world that the events of Robert Salvatore's book telling about the adventures of a dark elf Drizzt Do'Urden. And the same universe is used in the legendary series of computer games Neverwinter Nights and Icewind Dale. The planet on which the story of the previously cited franchises develops is called Arbitrary. I hope I pronounced that right, so I'm sorry if something is wrong. The focus is on some continent, Faerun. Many large cities and powerful states are spread in its territory, and even under the surface of the earth there is a huge network of tunnels called the Underdark. There life flourishes according to its own laws and rules, with its deities, people, conflicts and politics. The level of development in kingdoms of Faerun is comparable to Western Europe of the Middle Ages. Late Middle Ages. The continent is inhabited by hundreds of different intelligent races, which in turn are divided into thousands of different tribes, clans, organizations and nationalities, as well as beasts, monsters and magical creatures. Needless to say that the magic of religion and cults, deities, intrigues of war, mythology and different sacrifices, and everything else are on the list. So we moved to fact 2. Faerun is inhabited by dozens completely different races and hundreds of nations. The main sentient people of Faerun can be divided in 4 types of humanoids, goblinoids, anthropomorphs and monsters. Humanoids naturally include humans, elves, dwarves, drow elves, halflings, gnomes, nymphs, dryads and other races that resemble humans in physique. It is interesting that among them there are many creatures from other planes of existence which were brought into Faerun for one reason or another. Goblinoids include various goblins, kobolds, orcs, or something like that, and other non-intelligent, aggressive and vicious creatures of a similar physique and way of life. Anthropomorphic creatures are those in which are features of both man and animal, such as rakshasas, werewolves, medusas, minotaurs, lizardfolk and others. Well, monsters are completely different creations which are difficult to attribute to any of these types. Those include huge, extremely strong trolls, powerful and balancing dragons, and mysterious race of mind flayers, the Illithids. It is an octopus-like creatures that feed on brains of intelligent beings and they multiply through the infections and transformation. Once the empire was incredibly large and powerful, stretching over many worlds, but over time they lost their power and were defeated, lost their knowledge of many technologies and are now forced to hide, hoping for revival of super civilization. Beholders or observers are also attributed to monsters, creatures that are flying ball with a mouth and one single eye in the middle, and have strong magical talents. Together, all those races are forced to interact with each other and somehow get along. This cohabitation is not always achieved peacefully, but in all this chaos of constant wars and conflicts there is some barely noticeable balance. We moved to fact 3. Baldurs Gate is a city. Yeah. Over many millennia, a lot of large and independent cities have arisen in Faerun, which are essentially small states and are not subordinate to anyone. They have their own governing bodies, independent organizations, clans function in cities, they have their own armies. On the larger city functioning in this way is Baldur's Gate. It is because the name of the city, the series of role-playing games that were destined to become a cult, got its name. Baldur's Gate is located on Sword Coast, in the mouth of the River Chiontar. Because of the flourish and trade, the city develops very quickly. It is Baldur's Gate that the widest section of luxury goods for purchase, of which some noble come from very distant lands. For the inhabitants, the city is safe enough. Xenophobia does not threaten it, nor intolerance in various forms. A huge mass of streets are patrolled by guardians with characteristic black helmets with red stripes, and a company of Flame & Fist mercenaries is also stationed in the city, which positions itself almost as the defenders of Baldur's Gate. The main life of the city is centered around the harbor, where there is constant flow of people, goods, and money. Also, the streets are abound with sights of incredibly beautiful and imposing buildings, or powerful massive buildings. Initially, when the city first arose, it was called the Great Harbor. Mainly, its inhabitants existed by robbing crashed ships, which were lured to the shore right on the rocks at night with lanterns and lighted by masters of ghostly lights and local pirates. Such a catch turned out to be quite good. The Grey Harbor became a small trading point and began to grow. On the same day, a legendary traveler named Baldur arrived in the city. Over the years of wandering, he accumulated a lot of wealth, which he decided to invest in the infrastructure of Great Harbor. He himself was born here and wanted to help his native city. For his money, an impressive stone wall was built around the city, and already in the settlement, protected from external threats, people began to arrive at double speed. They were amazed by incredible gates of the city wall, and as a result, in honor of Great Baldur, the Grey Harbor was renamed into Baldur's Gate. The city itself is divided into three main districts: the upper city, where nobles live; the lower city, centered around the harbor, where workers live and our people; and outer city, which consists of quarters heaped around the walls of the Baldur's Gate, dirty, dangerous, poor with highly developed crime. In the outer city live those who could not find a place inside the city walls. Fact 4. The plot of Baldur's Gate tells us about dark gods of Faerun. Then the city developed, various religions and cults and their followers naturally began to appear, so most of all the Dead Trinity influenced the Baldur's Gate: Bane, Merkul, and Baal. Those three deities were once human beings who gave their life to find limitless power. They achieved their goal and shared a terrible force around themselves. Bane became a god of tyranny. Merkul subdued death to becoming the most powerful of necromancers, and Baal incarnated as god of murder. They were worshipped by many deities and cults at Baldur's Gate. For example, the god of murders, Baal, was especially revered. The power of gods grew, and at one point the Dead Trinity became as powerful that the Supreme God had to overthrow them. Bane, Merkul, and Baal became mortal again, but did not lose their strength. However, now their time was limited, and they began to think about how to maintain their strength forever. Each of them acted differently, but Baal came up with a special way. Foreseeing his death, the god of murder, Baal, began to travel in guise of ordinary person. His main goal was to seduce mortal women, so it is known that at least 8 children were born from him, and each of them has a fragment of the divine power of Baal. Because of this fragment, the children of God were prone to violence and cruelty. They owned magic, and life expectancy was incomparably longer than that of our people. Baal's plan was the fragments of proximity from each other should increase their influence on the carrier. The children of Baal were supposed to exterminate each other, thereby releasing particles of the essence of God of Murders. In the end, the deity could be reborn in the body of the last of the children who survived. And it so happened that at one moment it was at the Baldurs Gate and the surrounding settlements that there are several children of Baal at once. One of them was Sarbok, and the second one is Abdel Adrian. Although his name is not called, he is the character for which player goes through the company Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2. He must defeat Sarivok, who is, in order to achieve his goals, is even ready to provoke a war with a neighboring state. Baldur's Gate 2 was completed the main storyline of the dialogy. As in any good story, according to the plot of Baldur's Gate, Abdel Adrian managed to defeat the villain Sarabok, for which he was very fond of at the Baldur's Gate. The adventure of the protagonist did not end there. Baldur's Gate ended and Baldur's Gate 2 Shadow of Am began. Abdel Adrian was to meet with his half-sister Imoen, who was another offspring of Baal, after which the sorcerer John Irenicus began to hunt for him. He wanted to take the soul of Abdel Adrian and Imoen, and although he managed to defeat them once, but the main character were able to find a way out of the situation, in the end, using the help of a notorious character of the book of Robert Salvatore Dries de Urden, they defeated the minions of sorcerer John Irenicus, after which he killed himself. But the Baal throne remained empty. Fragments of the evil essence of the god of murder wanted to reunite, and Abdel Adrian continued on his way. He had to kill his sister on his father's line, after which he fell into the pocket dimension created by Baal for his children, where Abdel Adrian even met Sarivok, the first of the Baal children he killed. The very antagonist of the first game in Baldur's Gate series, the hero at will could donate a piece of his soul and resurrect Sarivok. In return, he promised to serve him faithfully. Abdel Adrian met a real angel and learned from him the whole truth about origin and destiny. It turned out that there are 5 more powerful children of Baal, and they are all fighting for the throne of their divine father. The angel helped the main character, and he had to take turns neutralizing the dissidents of the evil god. It's not easy, I tell you. In the end, he also had to fight the main priestess of Baal cult, who dreamed to connect all pieces of the soul of Dark God for herself, but she did not succeed. Abdel Adrian took the throne, and as the legend says, the son of Baal renounced his heritage. Thus, having finally destroyed the god of murder, he chose the way of mortals, returned to Baldur's Gate, and became one of the most famous citizens in the city. He forever inscribed his name in the history of the world. But others say that Abdel Adrian submitted to evil will of his father. They say that he still reunited the fragments of his evil essence and revealed the evil deity. It was here that the last official add-on for Baldur's Gate 2 ended. We waited impatiently, and there were some rumors around continuation for a long time. BioWare constantly hinted that something was coming, but the process did not move. Informational noise eventually disappeared, and Baldur's Gate were simply forgotten. Fact 5. The development of sequel turned into real curse. Many studios that took on it did not have a better fate. First, the development of the third part Baldur's Gate was started by Black Isle Studios. The company has experience with games in such setting and in the same work of Faerun. They had already released an Icewind Dale game. They called it simplified version of Baldur's Gate and were ready to work. Then Interplay Entertainment, of which Black Isle Studios was a subsidiary, suddenly began to have financial problems. The development of the game stopped. Many of the developers went to BioWare, and so far it was not up to Baldur's Gate. Some time later, BioWare decided to start developing Baldur's Gate 3. Black Isle Studios' work was not used, but at one point all the work had to be stopped anyway. Either the product did not suit, or the bet was made to something else. Baldur's Gate 3 was postponed again and again. Another 6 years passed, and the fans were already desperate to wait. And finally, a trailer was released from which fans of Baldur's Gate 3 series fell into ecstasy. Illithids, war, travel between planes, infections and transformation of people into terrible monsters. In addition, developers from Larian Studios as always focused on the role-playing system and promised more than 100 hours of pure story-based gameplay, and also invited fans to participate in open testing of the products themselves. The wait, of course, was very long, but still not in vain. And fact 6, the last one. For beginners, it's worth understanding that the plot of Baldur's Gate 3 is a separate story and does not continue the adventure of a child of Bal. That is it. It is completely connected with the previous parts, with the world and the city with the name of Baldur's Gate, but the main characters are already completely different. And their story is different. The story begins 120 years after the beginning of the original Baldur's Gate story and will be based on the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. The main antagonist will be a race of Illithids, who are also called Mind Flayers. Those creatures are the highest race that has existed since the time immemorial. Terrible, with purple skin, tentacles, and eyes without pupils. Once upon a time they owned thousands and hundreds of worlds, and they ruled the most powerful empire in the universe. They bred intelligent races like cattle, themselves traveled between worlds of huge interdimensional ships, now teloids, led by one great brain god, the ruler of his race. The collective mind allows them to be guided by exceptionally cold calculation to weigh all possible scenarios and analyze an incredible amount of information. Because of this, they always won battles, and they're much more advanced in science and other aspects of life than most ancient races. But as you know, no empire can exist forever. They enslaved the Gith race, but for some time they lost their vigilance, and unsparing began after seeing the example of Githyanki. Different peoples, even dragons on different planets and planes of existence, began to rebel against the Illithids. In the end, the Mind Flayers were overthrown, their settlement was destroyed, they were killed in all worlds, and those who survived fled into endless tunnels of dungeons. They accumulated their strength in order to return one day, revive their greatness, and again capture the entire universe. The technology of Illithids was greatly degraded. They lost their secrets of freighting nautiloid ships. They still, of course, had several those incredible ships that allow them to move between worlds, but their number only decreases. Illithids have strong psionic abilities, and they can communicate without words among themselves at a distance. They can levitate, see in infrared light, read the thoughts of creatures, and even subordinate them to their will. They feed exclusively on brains of sentient beings. Each Illithid must devour at least one sentient brain per month in order to survive. Then Mind Flayer dies, his brain is brought into salt pool of their elder brain is located, the deity of the Mind Flayers. The elder brain guarantees immortality to the collective consciousness of the dead Illithids. Those creatures reproduce by means of maggots. Those tadpoles, they breed in the salt pool of the higher brain. Tadpoles live in competition. Only the strongest survive, and those strongest are given a body, penetrating into which the tadpole takes possession of it, and in a week it turns the rational being into another monster. It looks like Mind Flayers have finally gathered their strength to try regain their former greatness. They will come out of the Underdark with a great war against everything living and intelligent, and one of the places of the main battle with Mind Flayers will be Baldur's Gate City. The main character will be captured, and he will even be implanted with a tadpole from which the character will have to get rid of in the shortest possible time. This will be the plot twist. Those were the most important facts which would be useful to know before you start playing Baldur's Gate 3. By the way, write in the comments if this video was interesting for you. Like it and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss my new videos. Thank you for watching and see you soon!